Today in the Big Apple, the former president taking the fifth, declining to answer questions of the New York AG's investigation of the Trump Organization's business dealings. This as the Wall Street Journal reports that an informant told investigators that there still have been classified documents at Mar-a-Lago even after the initial removal of those 15 boxes earlier this year from the National Archives. Joining me now to discuss, Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen. He's the host of the podcast Mea Culpa with Michael Cohen and principal of Crisis X. Michael, thanks for joining us tonight. I have to tell you, I've been eager to ask, nice to see you, I've been eager to ask you in particular about what's going on because you are intimately aware of not only what it's like to have had your home searched, the idea of what Donald Trump might think about this, but also you were around, and in case anyone forgot about this, I want to remind our viewers of what your old boss had to say about people who take the fifth. Listen to this.
Have you seen what's going on in front of Congress? Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Horrible. Horrible.
The mob takes the fifth. If you're innocent, why are you taking the Fifth Amendment?
When you have your staff taking the Fifth Amendment, taking the fifth, so they're not prosecuted, I think it's disgraceful.
I wonder what you make of him taking the fifth for literally hours today, Michael.
Yeah, it's one of the first times I'm going to agree with him in a long time, right? Only gangsters, mobsters, and guilty people take the fifth, right? Remember, when he was going after Hillary Clinton, when he was going after Congress, he'll say anything so long as it benefits him. And that's exactly what he was doing. He was using the fact that they were taking the fifth because in his mind it benefited. Well, right now it's not benefiting him, so he's going to do what he wants to do and plead the fifth, despite the fact that he has, for many years now, gone on the attack against anyone who took the fifth. Look, Eric Trump didn't take the fifth. He took the fifth a couple hundred times. Don Jr. didn't take the fifth, and neither did Ivanka Trump. So, why Donald is doing what he's doing? Because in his mind, someone told him that this is going to benefit him. And the reason it's going to benefit him is because he's really stupid. To be very honest with you, if you've ever read any of his depositions, he lies with impunity. And at the end of the day, they would end up getting a second charge on him, which of course would be lying to the authorities.
So, the idea of the stupidity on that point, it sounds for many, if you think about the strategy here, if the idea is to, on the one hand, convince your supporters and your base that it is wrong to take the fifth, although it is your right to do so, it's the government's burden to prove it, and then to be able to turn it around, there's been a lot of support and people saying that's a good decision because everyone's against you and you're not going to have a fair shot. There's no due process for you whatsoever. You can't comply with the system. What do you make of that sort of thought process of, well, it's appropriate as he thought for him because everyone's against him. Everyone's trying to attack him. He wouldn't get a fair shot. He's a victim.
Right, except that's the point I was going to make. He always cries the victim when he knows he's going to lose. The problem for Donald and whoever it is that provided him the information, as you're well aware, pleading the fifth does nothing for you in a civil matter. This is not a criminal matter where you could take the fifth and you cannot make an inference that taking the fifth sort of puts you in the guilty position. In a civil matter, it's exactly that. They now have the ability, which is what the Attorney General wanted anyway. She has now the ability to go ahead and to presume that by not answering the question that he's guilty of it. That's just how it works in the civil matter.
And that's an important point because many people may have thought, Michael, hold on, if he pleaded the fifth, took the fifth, then why would this go on for hours? Why would you ask every single question because then you can raise that adverse inference for every single question. It doesn't have to be, hey, I'm not going to answer questions, let's all go home. Part of the point is to lock in that answer, to draw that negative adverse inference. But speaking of information, I wonder what you make of this Wall Street Journal reporting tonight that somebody may have tipped off investigators about there still being more classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. We've played a lot of the montages all throughout the day of the idea of remember this comment about the Fifth Amendment, but I also remember a lot of comments about those who might be leakers, the idea of snitches, the idea of people informing, and the problem with that. What do you think his reaction is going to be to this reporting if that is in fact the case?
Well, it's definitely the case. How did they know? Look, as you stated accurately, when I received the knock on the door from the FBI, from the agents with the warrant, I opened up the door, I greeted them, despite what Donald said in my specific case. And of course, he's parroting it now, which is that they ransacked the place, they destroyed it, that they were unprofessional. It's absolutely not true. The FBI is always professional, they're courteous, and they're respectful. And I'm sure they treated Mar-a-Lago exactly the same. All right, so rest assured, it's once again Donald playing the victim. But as it relates to what's going on here, Donald knows that there are leakers or people who are, I'd like to say, doing the right thing for the right reason. I don't believe so. But whatever it is, every single person that he comes in contact with, and that includes his own children, he has to be wondering, who is it that provided the information to the government for them to be able to obtain this warrant? Because you could bet your bottom dollar, in order to get the warrant, this thing was scrutinized, and significantly.
I also would assume that even if somebody were to tip off, there had to have been some level of corroboration because, unlike, say, the average person, we know full well that part of the absurdity of the idea of if this can happen to Trump, it can happen to anyone, is that it happens to everyday civilians all of the time. I mean, the idea of an executing of a search warrant happens all of the time. The idea of the novelty is to happen to a former president here, but on the idea of your own personal experience of being at the receiving end of this federal search warrant, I mean, I wonder, how do you think that Trump is personally reacting to having Mar-a-Lago in particular searched by FBI agents? I mean, he's even suggesting that the FBI may have planted evidence, which is, there's no evidence whatsoever about that.
And aren't they supposed to be the party that protects blue? I mean, to make a statement like that, it's so reckless and it's so despicable. I truly don't even want to give it any airtime because it's just wrong on every sense. But one thing for certain, Donald's not so much concerned that the FBI came to Mar-a-Lago. He's not. What he's concerned about is he knows what information exists in the boxes that were taken. And that's what's concerning him. That coupled with who is it that was providing the information? Because right now he feels trapped. He feels all alone. And he should. He should feel this way. Because rest assured, whatever the person that provided the feds with the information, they're willing to provide more, and they will continue to do so until ultimately, and one thing you know, when the feds raid, usually what comes after that is an indictment and incarceration, and nobody knows that better than I. And one thing also, when it comes to Donald, I love how he's playing victim, right, for the weaponization of the Justice Department. I have a book that I'm going to be making an announcement tomorrow regarding a new book of mine that's going to be coming out that deals exactly with this issue. This is Donald Trump's weaponization of the Justice Department is now coming back to bite him in his, in his extremely large backside, right? And I constantly put in my Twitter feed, #KarmaBoomerang. He's the one that created this, and what he's doing is he's using exactly what he did to myself and others in order to play the victim on. It's really an amazing way of deflecting.
Well, either you know how to read tea leaves or you're extremely prescient to already have a book ready to go about this very topic, Michael. I got to tell you, it's sort of fascinating to think about in many respects that for some, as you've articulated, there's not the surprise about the playbook that's happening right now. There are remnants and sort of breadcrumbs leading up to how we've seen this play out in the past. I do wonder how it's going to play out politically going forward. Really important to hear your insight. Thank you so much.
So one quick statement
Sure.
here. The problem, I'm not prescient, I'm not Nostradamus. What I am is familiar with the man, all right? And I was with him for over a decade. How Donald Trump acted as the Trump Organization is identical to how he acts or acted when he was president in the Oval Office, and it's exactly how he continues to act post his presidency. Nothing with this man changes. He is exactly the same today as he was 10 years ago. And that's why I'm able to provide the insight that I do and so accurately, because the man will never change. Things he did at the Trump board is exactly how he's behaving today.
Can I ask you, Michael? I know we're out of time, but if that's the truth, and I don't have any doubt that it is, why didn't you see it sooner?
Yeah, because I was blinded by the cult of Donald Trump. And it was also not as relevant as it is today. It's one thing when it's the President of the United States making a racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic comment. It's different when it's the president of a small a myopically small real estate company in New York. Everybody always knew the kind of person he was, but there was also a lot of good things going on at the Trump Organization. And somehow or another, myself and all of my colleagues, we were all in this cult of Donald J. Trump and the Trump Organization. When he ultimately left that role and became the president, there were things that I was unable to contend with. And that's really also not what got me out of the cult. What really got me out of the cult was the incarceration.
Michael Cohen, thank you for your honesty. Nice speaking with you.
Good to see you, Laura.